Just before meeting Zelensky at the White House, Donald Trump shocked the world with a blunt demand: give up Crimea, abandon NATO, and the war with Russia could end. For Trump, it's the fastest path to peace, but for Ukraine, it feels like surrender, and for the world, it raises the question: is this bold diplomacy or a dangerous deal that could change global security forever? Just hours before one of the most important White House meetings of the year, Donald Trump made a statement that shook Washington, Kyiv, and capitals across Europe. In a bold and controversial declaration, Trump told Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky that if Ukraine truly wanted peace, it should give up its claim to Crimea and abandon its long-standing ambition of joining NATO. According to Trump, those two concessions could end the war almost immediately. His message was as direct as it was divisive, a proposal that appeared to align more closely with Moscow's demands than with Ukraine's aspirations, and one that ignited a storm of debate over the future of the war, America's role, and the very idea of global security. To understand the weight of Trump's statement, we need to go back. Crimea, the peninsula on the Black Sea, was annexed by Russia in 2014 after what the international community condemned as an illegal occupation. For Ukrainians, Crimea is not just a territory, it is a symbol of national sovereignty. Giving it up would mean legitimizing Russia's aggression and rewriting international law to reward invasion. Then there is NATO membership, which Ukraine has sought for years as its ultimate shield against future Russian attacks. Abandoning NATO aspirations would mean Ukraine remaining vulnerable, essentially forced to stand alone in a hostile neighborhood. Trump's suggestion wasn't just about peace. It was about reshaping the entire future of Eastern Europe. When Zelensky landed in Washington for his talks, his response was swift and uncompromising. He made it clear that Ukraine would never trade land for peace. He reminded the world that Russia, not Ukraine, had started this war, and that Ukraine had already suffered devastating losses defending its sovereignty. In his words, peace cannot be built on surrender. For him, Trump's proposal wasn't peace at all. It was capitulation. This defiance resonated with his people back home, who continue to endure daily missile strikes on cities like Kharkiv, Zaporizhia, and Odessa. The Ukrainian public has repeatedly shown in polls that they reject giving up territory, even in exchange for an immediate ceasefire. Zelensky knows that accepting Trump's conditions would not only betray Ukraine's constitution but also risk collapsing his government's legitimacy. European leaders were also quick to weigh in, and their tone was uneasy. Figures like Emmanuel Macron of France, Keir Starmer of Britain, Friedrich Merz of Germany, and Giorgia Meloni of Italy arrived in Washington for parallel meetings, each with concerns about what Trump's message meant for the West's unity. European capitals fear that conceding Crimea and shelving NATO membership would not bring lasting peace, but instead embolden Russia. The logic is simple: if aggression is rewarded once, why wouldn't it be repeated? Many European leaders remember the lessons of the 20th century, where attempts to appease aggressors only led to bigger wars. For them, forcing Ukraine into Trump's terms would be a dangerous precedent, a signal to authoritarian powers everywhere that brute force pays off. Trump, however, framed his position differently. In his view, the war has dragged on too long, cost too many lives, and drained too much money from U.S. taxpayers. He argues that Ukraine's NATO ambitions were a mistake from the beginning, escalating tensions with Russia, and that Washington should stop writing blank checks for a conflict that shows no signs of ending. To his supporters, Trump's approach is pragmatic: cut losses, strike a deal, and refocus America's priorities. They see his demand not as weakness, but as leadership, a willingness to make hard choices that establishment politicians avoid. The tension, though, lies in the collision of these visions. On one side, Trump insists that peace can be achieved through compromise, even if that means giving up key principles like territorial integrity. On the other side, Zelensky and Europe argue that peace built on surrender is not peace at all. It is merely the preparation for the next war. This White House meeting, therefore, was not just another diplomatic event. It was a battle of worldviews. Should Ukraine sacrifice its dreams of full sovereignty for the promise of immediate calm, or should it hold the line, even if that means years more of fighting? Behind closed doors, the stakes could not be higher. American officials worry about how Trump's message will be received not just in Ukraine, but also in Moscow and Beijing. If the U.S. appears willing to pressure allies into concessions, adversaries may see it as a green light to push harder. Meanwhile, Zelensky is under pressure to keep his Western backers united at a time when fatigue with the war is growing, especially in Washington. The European Union has promised billions in aid, but even there, political divisions are deepening. Trump's words didn't just spark controversy, they exposed the fragility of the Western alliance. For ordinary Ukrainians, the message felt like a betrayal. Families who lost loved ones in battles for Donetsk, Mariupol, and Bakhmut asked what their sacrifices were for if their government were now expected to give up. Ukrainian media was filled with commentary warning that such concessions would only legitimize Russia's brutality. And yet, others quietly wondered if Zelensky might eventually face an impossible choice: accept a flawed peace to save lives, or keep fighting a war with no guaranteed end. As the cameras rolled and the meetings continued, the world watched a tense diplomatic drama unfold. Trump's demand had shifted the conversation from how to support Ukraine to whether Ukraine should even be supported in its full ambitions at all. Was America's role to stand by its ally until victory, or to push that ally toward compromise for the sake of stability? No matter how one views it, the statement forced everyone, from Kiev to Brussels to Washington, to confront uncomfortable questions about values, costs, and the future of global order. In the end, this moment underscored a truth that has defined the war from the beginning. It is not only a fight over territory, but a fight over principles. Should nations be allowed to decide their own futures, or should stronger powers dictate them? Should international borders mean something, or are they negotiable when the pressure mounts? Trump's message to Zelensky was more than a piece of advice. It was a test of what kind of world we will live in when this war is finally over. And so, as Zelensky walked into the White House and faced not just Trump but also a divided alliance, one fact became undeniable. This meeting was about far more than two leaders. It was about whether the West still has the will to defend its values, whether Ukraine can survive as a sovereign nation, and whether the 21st century will be defined by compromise or conviction. The answers are not clear yet, but one thing is certain: history will remember this moment, when Trump told Ukraine to give up its fight, and the world was forced to decide if it would stand with Kiev or step aside.